When we think of the Christmas story, our minds usually jump straight to a baby in a manger, right? But what if I told you the real beginning of that story is way, way older? Today, we are going to peel back the layers on the first chapter of Luke's Gospel and find an ancient story that's been hiding there in plain sight. So, you crack open the Gospel of Luke, and you're not seeing any shepherds or wise men. Nope. The first thing you see is this old priest, Zechariah, doing his thing in the Jerusalem temple. Which kind of makes you wonder, right? Why on earth would you start here? It seems like a pretty random place to kick off the story of a king who's going to be born in a stable. And the answer is just wow. It's because Luke is showing us that this isn't some brand new story. It's actually the grand finale of a story that God has been writing for literally thousands of years. Think of Luke chapter 1 as an echo chamber. Pretty much every event, every person, every song is intentionally designed to remind you of something from the Hebrew Bible. What Luke is doing here is just brilliant. He's showing us this powerful sense of continuity. He's making a huge claim that the arrival of Jesus isn't the launch of some new religion, but it's the moment that all of God's ancient promises to Israel finally start coming true. Okay, so to really get this, we've got to learn how to spot what I call God's signature moves. These are specific ways he tends to show up throughout the Hebrew scriptures or the Tanakh. And when you see these patterns popping up again, it's a huge clue that God is on the move. Let's look at two of the big ones. So the first signature move is this: God brings life from barren wombs. Time and time again in the story of Israel, right when things look hopeless, God steps in and miraculously gives a child to a woman who couldn't have one. We're talking about Sarah, Hannah, Samson's mother. The list goes on. It's God's way of putting his fingerprint on the story, saying, hey, what's about to happen is all me, not human effort. And then Luke drops this line. Now, for anyone reading this in the first century, this would be like a giant flashing neon sign. An old, barren woman? Ding, ding, ding. We've seen this play before. Luke is doing this on purpose. He's echoing those ancient stories to get us to lean in and pay attention, because the God of Abraham and Sarah is at it again. All right, the second signature move is something called reversal justice. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's God's MO to completely flip the world's power structures upside down. He brings down the proud and the powerful, and he lifts up the poor, the forgotten, the humble. It's like a core value of his kingdom. And this is where it gets so cool. Just look at this. When Mary finds out she's pregnant with Jesus, she breaks out into this incredible song. But here's the thing, it's not a totally new song. It's basically a remix of a song sung by Hannah, Samuel's mother, centuries earlier. Mary knows exactly what she's doing. She's stepping right into that tradition, celebrating the God who turns the world on its head. So it's not just God's actions that Luke is echoing, it's also his words. We're shifting now from what God does to what he said he would do, those ancient foundational promises he made to his people. Now, these promises have a special name. They're called covenants. You can think of them as these sacred, unbreakable contracts that really form the entire backbone of the biblical story. They define the whole relationship between God and his people. And there were two covenants, two huge promises that were everything to the people of Israel. First, the one God made to Abraham, that through his family, the whole world would be blessed. And second, the one he made to King David, that one of his descendants would rule on a throne that will last forever. For centuries, they'd been waiting for these promises to be completely fulfilled. And then bam, Zechariah can finally speak again, and he starts prophesying. And listen to the names he drops. He explicitly name-checks Abraham and David. See what Luke's doing? He's making it absolutely crystal clear. This baby, Jesus, is the one. He is the fulfillment of both of these ancient nation-defining promises. And there's one more massive signal going off here. For something like 400 years, the prophets had gone quiet. God's direct voice was kind of silent in Israel. But now, in Luke 1, all of a sudden the Holy Spirit is being poured out again. Elizabeth, Zechariah, they're described as being filled with the Holy Spirit and speaking God's words. It's like the radio silence is finally over. God is back on the air, speaking and acting directly. So the stage is totally set. We've seen God's signature moves in action. We've heard the echoes of his ancient promises. Now, for the final piece of the puzzle, the actual preparation for the king's arrival. And that involves a very specific place and a very specific person. So remember, this whole thing kicks off in the temple in Jerusalem. This is so important. This isn't some secret event happening out in the middle of nowhere. No, the announcement of the king's forerunner happens at the very heart of Israel's national and spiritual world, while a priest is offering up incense that symbolizes the prayers of the entire nation rising up to God. And you know, any great king needs a herald, right? Someone to go out ahead of him, announce his arrival, and prepare the people. Well, that herald is John the Baptist. And his job wasn't some new idea. It was explicitly laid out by the prophets Isaiah and Malachi hundreds of years before. They said a messenger would come, one with the same spirit and power as the great prophet Elijah, to get the people ready for the Lord himself. And Luke just comes right out and says, yep, that's John. The connection is just, it's unmistakable. Okay, so what does all of this add up to? The crucial point, the big idea here, is that nothing in this story is random. Not a single detail is accidental. So here's the bottom line. Luke is a master storyteller, and he's building this incredible bridge from Israel's past to its future in Jesus. He's showing that Jesus' birth isn't some sudden interruption of the story. No, it's the long-awaited climax. Every barren womb, every song about turning the world upside down, every covenant promise, it was all pointing to this moment. I mean, to put it simply, Luke's argument is this. Without Jesus, the entire story of the Hebrew Bible is a book without its final chapter. All those amazing patterns and incredible promises are just left hanging, waiting for the resolution that he believes is found in Jesus. And that's really the thought I want to leave you with. If the beginning of this story is so deeply woven into the fabric of the past, tying together patterns and promises across thousands of years, what does that imply about how this very same story is supposed to continue through us and into the future?